And here we go. Okay, so shalom everybody. And we almost, Bezrat Hashem, today we're going to finish the whole alphabet. So it's quite an achievement that we've gone through the whole rigmarole, the whole Aleph to Taf soon. And I think the most important thing is that we're talking about a process, a complete talich. Rav Kook was it was very important for him to that things are a process. Nothing comes with a zap, with a bang. Everything takes time, and you got to. There's no magic solution. And just like the Geulah, the redemption is a process and starts slowly. Process that we're going through. We're advancing nicely. We've got a way to go still. So everything is in life. So there's I'll stop the sharing for a moment. There's a joke that's told about a Breslev Chassid and a Chabad Chassid and the followers of Cook who all go to heaven, and they're all being judged about whether they should go into heaven or not. And the Breslev Chassid jumps up and he says, "You know what? Rabbi Nachman promised me that if I go to Uman on Rosh Hashanah, I'll be picked up by my payers and carried off to heaven." And suddenly these two hands come out of nowhere, pick him up by his payers, and boop, he goes to heaven. The Lubavitcher Chassid looks, he says, "The Rebbe told me if I'll go on shlichut to India and dedicate my life to bringing Jews back to Judaism, I'll go to heaven." And all of a sudden, he lands up in heaven. And now all the eyes are on the Talmud of Rav Kook. And they look at him, he said, for you it's different. For you it's a talich, for you it's a process. Okay? There's no magic solution to go to heaven. For us, it takes time. And that's really what the otiyot are about, right? The otiyot, we go and there's a process. In fact, I told the story when I was giving the shiur this week in our kollel. I don't know if you guys remember the Top Star driving in South Africa. It was a drive-in movie house and it was on a little hill. And because the hill was too steep, you had to go round and round and round and round. Now, after a few times, you got to the top. So if you don't realize, you may think this is pretty boring. You go around and you get to the same place. You go around, you get to the same place. But it's not true. Each time you go around, you're a little bit higher. And eventually get to your destination. And that's what the talich is. And what we're going to see is that when we finish Taf, we have to go all the way back to Aleph again. And that's what all our life is about. We think we're going in circles, but we're actually moving up. That's our aim, to move up all the time. So let me jump into it. We're not going to do the whole refresh of all the letters, but we will just look at the last three letters of the hundreds. Okay, the Taf, the numerical value, gematria of Taf is 400. So we're going to look at 100, 200, 300, and 400. And they are parallel to the AlephBet Gimel Dalet. Right? Aleph was Hashem, the one. And the Kof, or the Kuf, is 100. And we said that that's imitation, like a monkey that imitates you. And that's because when you're talking about the many qualities of Hashem, the only thing we can try to do is we can try to imitate them. But we know that that's not really Hashem. We look at Hashem's reflection in this world, and we try to imitate it. The Gemara says, "Mahu rachum afatati rachum." You look at God's qualities, you see He's merciful, you try to be merciful. But these are very abstract ideas. So after the Kuf comes the Resh. Just like after the Aleph came the Bet. When the Bet came, it said it's like a house. It gives a physical foundation for the ruchniut, for the spirituality to be in. The Resh is the Rosh. When you have a leader, when you have somebody who's a Rosh, he takes these qualities from Hashem and he puts it into practical leadership. That is the Resh. The Shin was the balance between the two extremes. You had the Kof and the Resh, and the Shin has got three legs that we spoke about last time, it was 3 weeks ago, that it brings the balance, just like we spoke about Gimel. We said Gimel is the balance between the Aleph and the Bet. Gimel is Gomel. Okay, somebody who's got the right balance between giving and spirituality and everything on a very high level. On the other hand, keeping his feet on the ground and being stable from a physical point of view, this balance is not easy, but that creates the perfect person. And that's the gomel, then he can give of himself to other people. And that is the shin. We said the shin, the shein is the strongest, has got the strongest muscle, jaw muscle in the whole body. And it's got the incredible quality to be able to turn animals and vegetables and even domem, even inanimate objects, turn them into food which becomes part of man. In other words, he uses incredible force, this incredible balance between the two extremes, and your shinaim, your shein, your shin, can turn them into something that can be gomel. So we have a balance between the shin, the 300, and the gimel, the 3. And that's where we are now. Now we're on the taf. So if we said the gimel and the shin are balancing each other, then we'll expect that the dalet and the taf will balance each other. So the dalet, to remind you, was the dal, the person who's poor, who receives from the gomel, okay? And initially we think, wow, he's a miskein, he's nothing. The person that we're impressed with is the gomel, is the wealthy man who can give. But the message here is that the dal does as much and maybe more for the rich person as vice versa. There's a relationship here. There's a give and take relationship. And both are giving and both are taking. So you say, I understand that the gomel is giving, but what is he taking? Understand that the dal is receiving, what is he giving? He's giving the gomel the ability to give. He's giving him the ultimate gift to be able to copy God, to be just like Hashem and be the gomel. He gives him the ability to take this amazing balance that he's built up and put it into a practical use. And once these two come together, we have a system, a complete process, and that is the taf. And that is why the AlephBet ends with the letter taf, ends with the 400. We said when we got from the first 9 letters, 1 to 9, Aleph to Tet, and we went to the 10s, the kaf to the tzaddik, that we go up in klaliut, in generality. And we say, as you go up in generality, it's more holy, and it's got a deeper meaning. And then we went to the hundreds, the 4 letters we just spoke about, and that's even got a more general meaning. So now we're looking at these 4 letters, and once you get the perfection, the completion of the process of these 4 letters, of kuf, resh, the 2 extremes coming together into the shin, which is the perfect balance, and then the taf, right, which can receive it, now we have a complete system. With that introduction, we're going to look at each of the qualities of the taf. Okay, the taf, actually, I wrote it here with the yud, but I'm going to delete the yud because normally they write it without the yud. The taf is like a stamp, or like a stamp of approval, a sign. Okay, a tav teken is the stance of approval, or a kashut sign would also be a tav. It's a symbol, a physical symbol on something that's got significance behind it. Okay, a stamp of approval, of completion. Sometimes it's also referred to as a ta, and a ta is a box. Okay, so box is also like the starting box in a race, in a circular race, like in the horse races, right? You don't want the horse to go soon, so you put it in a box. You limit it initially, just so that when the box opens, the horse can run out and move forward. What this means, hopefully, we'll see in a few moments. The numerical value of taf is 400. Okay, and like in the previous letters, we said that you're taking bigger steps now. From shin to taf, we're jumping 100 units, as opposed to when we went from aleph to bet, we only jumped 1. And this indicates the greater power that we've got now. And what we said at the time, people that are more powerful could be wealthier, could be political power, could also be lahavdil, Torah power. When they do something, each minute of their time, each action that they do has so much more meaning, and they can achieve so much more in less time. right? If you've got $1 million to invest in on the Bursa, on the stock exchange, you can make so much more money in a day than if you've got $1,000 to invest. On the other hand, you can also lose so much more money in a day than you can if you got $1,000. And the same thing is that as we grow, we have more responsibility. You see great people, they just do amazing things day by day. Sometimes these great people that we respect, each minute that they use, they achieve so much more than some people achieve in many, many months or years of their lives. But sometimes these great people fall, and when they fall, the damage is so great. Right? Unfortunately, in the last few years, there have been a few examples of rabbis, even rabbis, right? Even, of course, politicians, that they do something stupid, and not only their world collapses, but very often the damage, the chilul Hashem, the disillusionment that it causes to so many people is very big. So we're taking now these big steps, and each big step is a great thing, but it has a bigger risk. And one of the things that Rav Kook taught us is we're not scared. Okay, Rabbi Nachman said, we take the big steps, we take caution, but we take the big steps because that's what Hashem requires of us. Just like the Dalet, okay, there's a parallel between the Dalet, which is 4, the Mem, which is 40, and the Taf, which is 400. So just like the Dalet, as I said, completes the interaction between the giver and the taker, so the Taf completes all the relationships of the whole world. In other words, everything of the AlephBet. It completes everything that we've learned till now. And after the shiur, you can go and listen to all the shiurim over and over again and see how the Taf completes everything that we've done. And in fact, if you had to ask me, Yehuda, can you summarize all the letters in one sentence? I would say giving, or spirituality, physicality, combination, creating a system. 1, 2, 3, 4. Abraham, Yitzhak, Yaakov, Am Yisrael. Okay, and that is the completion of the process. So when we do 400, we've completed the 4 processes, and that's why the number 4 is also the 4 directions of the world. Yama v'kedma tzafona v'negba. You look at the 4 directions, you're covering all your options, you're bringing the world together. Okay, and something that we'll see a lot today as we get on to the next slides is that the whole cycle that we're speaking about started with the letter AlephBet, and now is ending with the letter Taf. And those are the beginning of the words of the word emet, the beginning of the word of emet, and mem is the middle letter. And just a small clarification on that: if there are 22 letters in the alphabet, there's actually no middle letter. Mem is one of the 2 middle letters. But if you add each of the letters, the ot sofit, right? Those that have got the end letters, like the mem's got mem sofit, etc. You add another 5 letters, then mem is exactly the middle letter. Okay, so we're completing the cycle. And what is emet? Emet is when things come together in the one real way that there is. We'll talk about emet later, so I'm not going to expand right now. The shape of the Taf is a combination of a chet with a little yud on the bottom. Okay, and when we spoke about chet, we said chet was the number 8, which is supernatural. Just to remind you, we had the combination 6, 7, 8. 6 is the vav, is this physical world. That's why there's 6 days in the physical week. There's 6 directions, and there's 4 directions up and down in space. 7 was combining the physical with Hashem with the spiritual. So we take the 6 days of the week plus Shabbat, you get the combination. Or in space, you get the 6 directions with the point in the middle. That's the neshama that brings them together. The Maharal explains it. And 8 is supernatural. I cut myself off from the natural and I'm supernatural. So what happens with the letter Taf? We've reached the level of supernatural, but even beyond that, we've reached it in such a level that we can take the Yud, the representation of God's name, and move it on to the next step. Okay, so it's got the Chet, we've grown. So we realize that we don't need the physicality. And then we add the Hashem's name to give us, let's now take the next step forward. And as I said, just like in the drive-in, in the top star drive-in, that next step could be going back to the Aleph. But the Aleph we get back to is a different Aleph to where we started from. And finally, the first word in the Torah that starts with the letter Taf is right in the second verse, right in the beginning. Tohu vavohu. Going to the simple explanation, balagan, tohu. But the deeper meaning is this word in Hebrew, toheh, means I wonder, I think, I ponder. And what this comes to tell us that when we look, if a simple person opens up a computer board, opens up the inside of a computer or a complex TV set or something, and you look at all the wires, you say, "Whoa, this is a balagan." Now, the engineer who designed that, he'll either laugh at you or he'll get insulted, but he said, "This is definitely no balagan." There is so much planning and organization and everything in what appears to be a balagan that this makes the computer work. Thanks to this balagan, we can have the Zoom right now and display a PowerPoint to you. But why does it appear to us sometimes as balagan? Because we don't understand the complexity. So that's the mashal, that's the same principle of why the world before creation appeared to be a balagan. Not because it was a balagan, because there was so much organization, so much complexity that to any human being, it appears to be a balagan. But in truth, everything was in there. What happened afterwards, Hashem started limiting things. Let's put the light is one side and the darkness another side, the heavens one side, the earth another side. And slowly, by limiting things, we have a simpler world, a simpler computer, but we understand it. And that's what the Taf of Tohu is. This is pondering. In other words, what we're doing by Taf, once we complete the cycle, we've taken the incredible complexity of the world, we've filtered it down, and then we've broken it down into 22 steps called AlephBet, Gimel, Dalet, etc. And each of them we've understood on a week-by-week basis around this forum, and that's given us some understanding. Do we understand Hashem? No. Do we understand the world completely? No. We understand a subset of the world that Hashem has given us permission and the ability to understand. And that is what the Taf is, limiting it to this 400. And now that we've grown, hopefully we're all different people to when we started these sessions, say 6 months ago. Now we can do another round of Aleph to Taf and see a whole lot of different insights because our level of Tohu will be higher. Okay. By the way, if anybody has questions, please go out of mute and ask them with pleasure. It gives me a chance to catch my breath. Okay, so now we're going to look at a couple of other points. And like I like doing, we look at the Maharal Shabbat that ends off now the AlephBet and tells the little kids, talk about what is Taf. Taf is emet. So we said this already, that the word Taf is the last letter of emet. But this is a little bit strange, right? I would expect, till now when we said a letter stands for something, you expect it to be the first letter, right? You say Y stands for Yehuda, you don't say A stands for Yehuda because it's the last letter of the name. Why do these kids, when it comes to emet, put the Taf at the end? And I think the answer here is that that's what emet is all about. There's no such thing as half-truth. Some people say, it's almost true. There's only one truth. And then there's infinite deviations from the truth. All of those deviations have one common name, sheker, falseness. And so when do you know that you've got to the emet? When you get to the end. Because if you don't wait to the end, maybe one step before the end or 2 steps before the end, something will be not emet, and then the whole emet is not emet. right? There's only one emet. So that's why I think the Taf comes at the end. And that's why the Gemara calls emet the stamp of Hashem. And you remember we said above here that the word Taf is a stamp of approval. So the stamp of emet is Hashem's name. And it comes right at the end, and that's why the Taf is at the end of the word emet. And we'll see a little bit now that it's the opposite of sheker, but let's just put that aside for the meantime. Okay, so the last letter of the alphabet is the external representation of the other letters. Okay, in other words, I just got this image now. You know, when they used to picture in the old days the bride and groom driving off from the wedding, and they always had these fancy cars, and then you see them looking out the back window, and then so they disappear. They don't disappear, but your last image of them is this little window, this little screen almost, right? The back window of the car, and you see this couple this face is getting smaller and disappearing. Basically, you've been at the wedding. You maybe you've known this couple as they've been dating and engaged and going through the process. And now this is the completion of the process. And then you look at the end of the process, you're looking through the screen and you see a summary of the whole process. I'll give you another example. I worked for many years in a company that did end-to-end television systems. Now, for us to watch television at home, there's needs for lots and lots and lots of computers and very clever things in the broadcast center, a little box in your home, all different things. And many people work on these things to try to get them working together. At the end of the day, you look at the screen. You're looking at the screen and seeing hopefully a perfect working system with the pictures nice and sharp and you can hear the sound. And sometimes there's menus and that you can. All this is like the final representation that there's a whole lot going on in the background that maybe I don't understand. And that is the Taf. When you look at the Taf, that tells you that there's a whole lot of other letters that we spent, all of us together, weeks and weeks together, understanding. And the Taf is the stamp that says everything's there. Or if you look at the stamp of approval of kashrut, somebody has checked that the animal was a kosher animal. Somebody checked the shochet, did the shchita in the correct way. Somebody checked the lung that it didn't have a hole in. Somebody did the salted it and cleaned the blood. All these things happened, and you just look at the stamp, the Taf teken, and you know that everything's been done. That's why the Taf comes right at the end of the AlephBet. I wrote it also that it's like a person's face. The word for face in Hebrew is Panim. Hebrew is an amazing language. It's the same word, just with different nikud, as Panim, the inside. In other words, our face is like the screen. And by looking at a person's face, you see that there's a whole lot of mechanisms happening inside him, right? This shura that I'm giving to you now is not coming from my face, but the only thing that you can see, especially on Zoom, is my face and maybe my hands that don't start moving. And that's all of these are part of the Taf. Okay, now the word emet, and we're going to talk mainly about emet now because that's what the Taf is all about. It's very interesting that it's Aleph met. If you take the Aleph, the Hashem, away from the truth, not only do you not have emet, but you have death, because that's what life is. Life is truth, right? Life is the combination of everything together that gives us eternity, gives us life, brings everything together. If we think we can be half true or half alive, that's death. And I'll just say in parentheses, I don't know if we mentioned or not when we learned about the AlephBet Gimel Dalet, the word beged is 3 consecutive letters. By the way, just like the word sheker, which is false, is also 3 consecutive letters. And not only does it mean clothing, but it also means begida, to betray. Okay, did Shakespeare say that the clothing oft betray the man? Maybe he did, maybe he didn't, but often we wear clothes to create an impression about ourselves. I remember once on the way to the airport, I had to get permission to leave the country for a business trip many years ago. They used to have that. And I had to stop at my army base on the way to the airport. And I'd been to this army base many times, and every time they checked me and they would let me in. And this time I walked in with my suit and my tie, and nobody checked me. I was the same Yehuda, but this time I had an image. So very often the beged is something that betrays who you are. And why is that? Because it's got the bet gimel dalet, it's missing the aleph. Again, missing the emet. When we talk about emet, there's two Gemaras that I'm going to mention, two lovely stories. The one is about luz, and this is appropriate that we're having this, we're talking to you from Bet El, because the Torah says luz shema ila rishona. But luz, besides being a place in Bet El, it's also a bone, according to the rabbis, just at the back of the neck here, that even though your whole body integrates and all your bones eventually integrate, there's a little bone here that is so hard that doesn't integrate. And one day when it'll become Tchiyat HaMeitim, when the dead people will be resurrected after the Messiah, they will be built on that, from that little bone. So by the way, there's no problem giving a kidney because your kidney will be rebuilt from that little bone. What does the story come to tell us? So the story about luz, we'll talk about luz, and then we'll understand the bone. The story told about luz is in the Gemara. Shlomo HaMelech sees the Malach HaMavet, the angel of death, laughing. No, he's not laughing. He's deliberating. And Shlomo says, "What's going on here?" He says, "No, I'm trying to get to two of your workers that work for you, and I want to kill them." So Shlomo knows that there's this place called Luz, listen to this, and nobody dies in Luz. And he sends them immediately to this place, Luz. And as they get to the gates of Luz, just before they can walk inside, the Malach HaMavet gets them and he kills them. Afterwards, Shlomo HaMelech sees the Malach HaMavet very, very happy with himself. He says, why are you so happy with yourself? He said, I had a dilemma. I had a decree that I had to kill them at the entrance of Luz. And I don't know how to get them there. And you helped me get them there. Okay. Now, let's just put that aside for a second. Then let's go to the second place called Kushta. Kushta means truth in Aramaic. And the two are definitely related. And the story is told about a rabbi. Some say his name was Rav Tfut, from the word Tov. Some of his name was Rav Tibyume. He was good for many days. And he went to live in the city called Kushta. And it was called Kushta because nobody told a lie in the city of Kushta. And because of that, nobody died young or tragically in the city of Kushta. So there's a connection between telling the truth and longevity. And one day he found a wife there and he got married and they had 2 children. And he's sitting at his home and his wife was in the shower, she was washing her hair. And one of the neighbor's wives knocks on the door and asks to speak to his wife. And he thought it's not appropriate, a woman's hair is something that's private. People cover their hair. He doesn't want to tell the neighbor that she's washing her hair. So he said that she's not here. And the neighbor went. And a short while afterwards, both these sons died tragically. Immediately, the people in Kushta knew something was strange. This hadn't happened ever in Kushta. And they went and they told him and asked him what happened. And he told them the story. And they said, you have to leave us. We can't have anybody in Kushta that can't even tell a lie. Now, I'm not sure the story of Kushta actually happened. I'm not sure the story of Luz actually happened. But when Midrashim of Chazal come and tell these strange stories, the truth is not the literal truth of the story, but the message that they're trying to get across. And the Bavadai, for sure, that there are times when we have to twist the truth and the Gemara says itself, that there's sometimes that it's the right thing not to tell the truth. If someone tells you how much Torah you've learned, tell them a little bit less. If someone tells you if you had a great meal at a certain person, don't tell everybody about it because then everybody will go to this person and drive you crazy. And certain things of privacy between a husband and wife, you don't talk about them. And if you need to, you change. And one of the things for shalom, to bring peace between people, it's a mitzvah to change to the truth. So if you're allowed to tell the truth, why do you get punished? But the point is that in this world, we live in we spoke till now about the combination of the aleph, the ideal, and the bet, the limitation. The aleph will never tell a lie. The bet will always adapt things to what you need to do. And all the time, we have this tension of how to adapt these two together. And that is all the AlephBet that we're trying to do. That is the emet, the practical emet that we're doing with all our lives. And that's why we strive with everything we got to do a kushta and never to tell a lie. And we realize that sometimes the situation requires us to do things, and sometimes we will have to pay the price. But nevertheless, once we deviate from the completeness, from the truth, from aleph to taf with no exceptions, then something's missing. Something's missing in our DNA. Then God forbid there's place for death or tragedy to come in. Okay, moving on to the next point. Clock's ticking. ויאמר השם אלי, עבור בתוך העיר, בתוך ירושלים, והתווית תו על מצחות האנשים הנאנחים והנאנקים, על כל התאבות הנעשים בתוכו. Okay, I just brought this as an example where the word tav is used in the Torah itself, and the tav is a mark on the forehead, and based on the mark on the forehead, you could see if people were telling the truth or not. I'm not going to get into this more. I'm going to move to the last slide. And just a few more things about emet. So there's a pasuk in Tehillim. It's from Kuf Yutet. That's the very, very long chapter that we read. We like to read. It's got 8 psukim for each letter, and we read it at. We have haskarot. We read it according to the people's names. So in the name Reish, one of the psukim starts Rosh Devarcha Emet. Literally, the beginning of your words are emet. 2 very interesting drashot on this. What is Hashem's words? Hashem's words is the Torah. The main parts of the Torah are the 10 Commandments, the Mishnah, and the Gemara. The 10 Commandments, which also includes the Torah, starts with the word Aleph, Anochi Hashem Elokecha. The Mishnah, the Brachot, the first we read is Me'em Matai Korim Shema Ba'aravin. When do we read Shema in the evening? What time do we read Shema? It begins with a Mem. And the Gemara, straight after that Mishnah, says, Tana Echakai Diktani Me'em Matai. Okay, there's a whole, where does the Tana, where does the rabbi learn from that there's a mitzvah to read Shema at night? And you take these 3 letters and you see that when you bring the whole Torah together, that's Aleph Mem Taf, that's Emet. In other words, some people say that I just believe in the Torah Shebichtav, just in the Torah that was given to Moses without the oral Torah. No, you have to have the complete picture, and anyone who misses one of the complete picture, you won't have the Rosh Devarcha Emet. Another explanation I saw, Rosh Devarcha Emet, is the beginning of the Torah, right? Rosh Devarcha, the beginning of the Devarcha, your words, Hashem's words, is the Torah. So let's look at the beginning of the Torah. If you look at the first 3 words in the Torah, Bereshit bara Elokim, the last letters of them are Taf, Aleph, Mem, Emet, but in the wrong order. Then we go through the whole creation, first day, second day, third day, we come to Shabbat, and then Vayar Elokim kol asher asa, asher bara Elohim la'asot. Again here, the end of creation also has bara Elohim la'asot. The end letters are emet, but here they're put in the right order. In other words, that there's Aleph Mem Tet is Aleph Mem Taf is the combination or the recipe for the ideal world. But as we said, we have to limit it, and limited is the creation, and then we put them in the right order. We get emet that we can live with. Okay, and like we said, I think in almost every one of the letters, that as great as the letter is, so it can be negative, and the same tohu vavohu, the same Tav can be also ta'ava, which is desire. And desire is something that can destroy us, but desire is something that can actually give the world its life. In other words, for example, the greatest thing a human being can do is to give birth to a baby. We simulate God's greatest creation, which is man. And when man and woman get married, they have more children. This is in your honor, the great-grandchild. And that is the greatest thing a person can do. But we all know that same ta'ava that brought the man and woman together could, God forbid, lead to extremely negative things and a lot of destruction. And finally, so we see that this taf, this emet, is tachlit, or in Yiddish tachlis, right? What we're actually trying to achieve. It's the Torah, it's the taf of the Torah, because it's the completeness of the Torah. And once we get there, we say tam v'nishlam. When things are perfect, when we have everything brought together, that's the perfection. So we'll just step back quickly to the 4 qualities. We don't have anything for the sound. The tav, it's a tav teken. It shows the stamp that we've gone through the whole process. There's a lot more behind than we can see now. It's a box that closes off a whole lot of things inside that maybe we just see the screen, we don't know what's inside. But it's the box of the number 400, which completes the give-take relationship that this world is all about, and therefore brings together all the directions, all 4 directions, and that's emet, because we bring everything together. The shape, by bringing everything together, you start touching on the supernatural, so much so that you can start influencing through the little yud and come around for the next round. And finally, you realize that that the tohu of the vohu, the balagan that you thought existed in the world, you start understanding it. And I say maybe with the letters, maybe till 6 months ago, you thought these letters were just random shapes and we just learned to read. But hopefully we've been through a process, a tahalich, right? That we realize that there's a lot of chokhmah that we can use to grow. So, chizku v'imtzu, thank you for listening. And hopefully we'll all grow through this.